Hi guys, I'm Anissa and I'm back with another video. Today I want to share with you a weekly wrap-up type of thing where I talk about both the books that I've been reading over the past week as well as the books that I didn't get to wrap up last week because of the vlog. I've since then uploaded a reading vlog where I talk about the books that I was reading for that, and I'll leave a link up to that above. If you haven't watched it, it is where I read some of Mara from Books Like Woe's favorite books, and in that I read 5 books for that, and I have read over the past week I've read an additional 2 books, which isn't that much, but it is a little bit. I would like to apologize for this awful thing. It's been really good weather in Denmark here the last, I don't know, and then the other day I had put sun lotion, I figured, all over but apparently hadn't been really good at this area, so this is a little bit red and everything else seems fine, so fun stuff. Anyway, in total I have 7 books to talk about today, so let's get into them before it gets too long. The first thing I read of Amara's favorite was The Duchess War by Courtney Milan. This is the first book in the Brother Sinister series. This is a book that follows this girl called Minerva Lane, and Minerva Lane is someone she has a secret past, you don't know what it is. At the beginning of this book she's sort of hiding away in a room, office, library thing, but in the same room that she's hiding, the Duke of Claremont, Robert Blaisdell, is also hiding behind the curtain for some reason, and this daughter starts their acquaintance. I super enjoyed this book. I thought that especially our main character Minnie was really great. I also did really like the Duke. Overall I think that he was a really good character in this one. I have done the core pile on this one, so let's get into the stats. The characters, I give them an 8 out of 10. I just really mostly enjoyed it. I prefer Minerva over the Duke, but I did think it was really interesting seeing her. She comes from a sort of middle class place, and so there's a lot of discussions on the differences in their ranks. The atmosphere gets a 9 out of 10. I just really enjoyed the setting. It seemed really authentic to the time, I think, so I enjoyed that. The writing gets an 8 out of 10. I thought it was well written. It was mostly paced really well over the book, so I definitely enjoyed it. The plot gets a 9 out of 10. I just really enjoyed this, and it's sort of the historical romance that I enjoy, and I definitely liked how it was structured. The intrigue gets an 8 out of 10, as well as the logic, and the overall enjoyment gets an 8.5 out of 10, so this gives a score of 8.35, which gives which equals to 4 out of 5 stars. So I definitely really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it, and I hope that I will get to the next one soon. I did really enjoy this, and will definitely read the next. I think it's a 4-book long series, so I'll definitely want to read them all. The next thing that I read for that vlog was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is a standalone mystery, one of her most famous ones. I think is one of those that's been adapted into a movie recently, pretty recently, and I didn't actually know this mystery going into it. I have sort of been I'm really good at avoiding spoilers for things, staying ignorant of something until I put a mind that now I want to read it and now I want to watch a movie or whatever. For the most part I'm really good at staying off spoilers, and it was in this case as well, but I definitely did really enjoy this mystery. It is a sort of isolated closed circle mystery, because you have these people who are stranded on this island, and one by one they seem to disappear or die in different ways, and you don't really know why, and then it gets revealed at the end, and the reveal was really good. I just really enjoyed the concept of this mystery, and I thought the reveal was done really well. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, let's get into the breakdown. The characters get a 7 out of 10. While they weren't the most memorable, I definitely found them really interesting, and so they gave a 7 out of 10. The atmosphere gets a 9 out of 10 because I just really enjoy being on this island. It got the the right vibe for this sort of mystery. The writing gets a 9 out of 10 because I can't fault the fact that Agatha Christie knows how to write a mystery, knows how to structure it, and knows how to keep you entertained throughout the mystery. And there's a reason she's so prolific, there's a reason she's so popular. That's because she's a really good writer, author. The plot gets a 9 out of 10 because I thought, again, it was really amazing how it was written, and the mystery was slowly revealed. And the intrigue gets a 9 out of 10 because I was intrigued through the whole thing. I definitely wanted to get back to it. The logic gets a 9 out of 10 as well, and the overall enjoyment gets a 9 out of 10, which gives an average score of 8.71, which gives a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So definitely really recommend this mystery, and it's a good place to start with Agatha Christie because it's a standalone book. You don't necessarily have to commit to a whole series. The next thing that I finished was Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh. This is the first book in the Side Changeling series. This is a series that follows, it's a sort of futuristic setting where the Psy is the top of the rank. They are not able to sense emotions, and they sort of have like interesting psychological type power. Some have telekinesis, some has telepathy, and some has medical sort of powers that you can use towards sort of psychological stuff. And then we have the changelings, who are like second rank above humans, obviously, and the changelings could be like panther shifters, wolf shifters, and whatever. Our main characters in this one, one of them is a Psy and the other one is a panther shifter. The Psy, Sasha, knows that she is something wrong with her because she is able to feel something. She senses different emotions. She started having opinions about stuff and started feeling guilt, sort of sorry, and sort of those type of emotions, and she definitely has some feelings towards Lucas, our panther shifter, that she hasn't been able to determine and that she hasn't felt before. And so it is sort of their love story. Lucas is the alpha of this panther pack, and the way that they come into acquaintance is that the Psy is trying to build some bridges or find out more information about the changelings, and in doing so she has to sort of help them in terms of some new building constructions and stuff, and help them out with that. And she has to report back to the Psy sort of regularly in terms of whatever she finds out about the Psy about the changelings that they don't already know. So there's a lot of political stuff in this as well. Overall, I just really enjoyed it, and I will get into my breakdown now. The characters gave it a 7.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed Sasha. I thought Sasha was really well. I thought that Lucas was okay in times, but there were definitely some moments where he was a little too alpha-ish for my liking. I did enjoy the friendships in the pack, so there's a lot of the side characters that really upped the characters in this one as well, so that's why it gets a 7.5. The atmosphere gets a 9 out of 10. I just really enjoyed being in this world. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm so excited to see what else happens in this world. The writing gets an 8 out of 10 because it really flowed really easily. It was a really nice read, and I enjoyed myself when I was reading it. The plot gets a 7 out of 10 because there were a couple of things that I would have liked to have been handled differently, but I did enjoy it. So yeah. The intrigue gets an 8 out of 10 because I'm definitely intrigued for the whole part. I definitely wanted to get back to this, even if it did take me a little longer to read. It was mostly because I didn't have much time to actually pick up the book. The logic gets an 8.5 because I think there was a lot of things that made sense in terms of how the world was built and what happened and how it was done. And overall enjoyment gets an 8.5 because I really did enjoy this first installment, and I'm really looking forward to reading on in the series, which gives an overall score of 8.07, which equals to 4 out of 5 stars. The next thing that I finished was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I finally did a reread of this. It is the first time I read it. I probably only read half of it. I tried listening to an audiobook as well as reading at the same time. I ended up mostly just listening to the audiobook at the end of it. because I wasn't as immersed in this one, so I felt like I had to do something at the same time as I was reading it. It wasn't difficult to follow along though, so even if it was a classic, I had no problem following along with what was going on. But let's get into the breakdown of this. The characters get a 6 out of 10. I just never really connected to the characters as much as I thought I would. I do recognize that some moments between Elizabeth and Darcy was interesting and was good and was well written, and there were definitely some moments with the familial bond between her and her family that was really interesting, but overall I just never connected to them completely. The atmosphere gets a 6 out of 10. While I enjoy the time period, I felt like there was something lacking in the atmosphere to completely grab my attention. The writing gets an 8 out of 10 because I do recognize that it's really well written. There's a reason that this is a classic. That's a reason why Jane Austen is so popular. It's because she has a really good writing style. She has quite a lot of humor brought into the story, which I recognize. The plot gets a 6 out of 10 because it was just not my kind of thing. It wasn't the plot that I guess I wanted from this. Intrigue gets a 6 out of 10 because, as I said, I wasn't as immersed in the story as I wanted to. The logic is a 7 out of 10. It seemed realistic that there were people acting this way at that time, but I would have liked it to be a little bit different, I guess. I don't know. The overall enjoyment gets a 6 out of 10, and this gives an overall score of 6.43, which gives a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So it's definitely not terrible. It's just not what I was expecting, I guess. The last and final thing that I read for my video of reading Mara's favorite books was The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I find it really difficult explaining what this book is about, so bear with me if it doesn't make any sense, because when you're reading it you're really confused and not sure at all that you have a hang of it. So yeah, The Library at Mount Char is a mix of a lot of genres, very much a genre bender, in that it has horror elements, it has fantasy elements, and it has scientific elements, and it's set in a different sort of version of our Earth as we know it. And I think it's set a little bit in the past. I don't think it's a present setting, maybe, or maybe it's just because it just jumps a little bit back and forth in time. I'm not sure. It follows this woman called Carolyn who has something going for her. She's not completely human. She has some powers that she's gotten, and she's been adopted by this person known as the Father, and things happen and she has an agenda and you don't know what it is, and stuff happens and it gets more and more confusing, and by the end of it you think you might know it, but you're not really sure that you've found out what it is that her gender is. There's a couple of interesting side characters. There's a specific scene that I really enjoyed that featured this side character called Steve when he was at the vet with a lion, with a lion, and that was interesting, and it definitely made me appreciate Steve a little bit more. So anyway, let's get into the breakdown. The characters get a 9 out of 10. I just really enjoyed Caroline. This is the perfect example of reading a book where you actually don't really like the characters' motives and you don't like how they are, but you're really interested in their character. This is that book, because Caroline's not a good character, but she's written really interestingly, and you you definitely want to know what's going to happen with her and why she's doing what she's doing. She's a really interesting character. And the side characters were really well written as well. I think a lot of the side characters were well written, and yeah, the atmosphere gets a 10 out of 10 because it was weird as hell and I was in for it. I was so confused, but I was so into this book as a whole. It was weird. The writing gets an 8 out of 10 because I think it was really well written, but there were some moments that it could have been done a little bit better in order to keep the pacing up. The plot gets a 9.5 out of 10 because it always makes sense. I don't know why I didn't give a full 10, but it definitely made sense to me because I definitely enjoyed it. It was simply the weirdest books that I've ever read. The overall intrigue gets a 10 out of 10 because I was hooked for this story the whole time. I wanted to get back to it all the time once I started it. I didn't want to put it down, but I'm not the fastest reader any longer, and I don't sit down and read for like 10 hours a day very often, so I did stretch it out to multiple days, but whenever I picked it up I did read for a couple of hours straight because I couldn't put it down. The logic gets a 9 out of 10 because even though I'm not sure what it all happened, I felt like it all made sense. And overall enjoyment gets a 9 out of 10 because this was amazing. I really enjoyed it, and it gives an overall score of 9.21, which means it's an overall 5 out of 5 stars. I just really enjoyed this one and definitely recommend it if you like weird stuff. I think if you don't like being out of the know of a thing, then definitely consider if it's something worth for you to pick up. But if you are interested, if you don't mind being a little bit confused as you read, but you are intrigued by the characters and you have like sort of genre benders, then definitely try and look this one up because it was really interesting. And I'm sad that this is the only like novel that this author has written because I'm really interested in reading something else by him. The next thing that I finished over the past week was Ever After by Kim Harrison. This is book 11 in the Hollow series, so I'm really close to the finish line for this one. It's difficult explaining the exact plot of this specific book because it's the 11th book in the series, but this series follows Rachel Morgan, who is a witch. She is considered herself a white witch because she does sort of spells with earthy sort of magic. She uses Wicca type of spells. But then people are haunting her because of something, and she's trying to protect herself, so she does some sort of darker spells in order to make some protection spells for herself. And she moves into this old church because this is a holy place. Not all species can get there, since she can be relatively safe when she's at home. And she moves in there with a vampire friend, which causes some issues, and a pixie named Jenks, who is her partner. Those three are like partners in this new company they start, and things happen from there. And where I am now, there's a lot of things going on, and I really enjoyed where this was going. So let's get to the breakdown. The characters get a 9 out of 10. I just super enjoy Rachel herself, and in this one there's a lot of the side characters that really developed, and I have loved Trenton Callamack is a really good antagonist and sort of morally grey character throughout the whole series, and I really enjoy how he's developing over the series and how you get to know more and more about this character as the series progresses. So I'm really happy about how much you get to know about them. The atmosphere gets an 8.5 because I do really enjoy this setting. I do enjoy the life. It's like I won't say it's typical urban fantasy because there's definitely more to this world than just the average urban fantasy series, but it is a really interesting world. The writing gets an 8 out of 10 because I do enjoy it there. Like if you I compare her to Jennifer Eastep, her writing is a lot better, so I will definitely give her some merit for that. The plot gets an 8.5 out of 10 because I really thought this one was well structured. I thought that it was well paced throughout the whole book, and I was really interested in seeing what was going to happen to Rachel and the other people. Overall intrigue gets 9 out of 10 because I was enjoying this over the whole thing. Logic gets an 8.5 out of 10, and overall enjoyment gets a 9 out of 10, which equals to a score of 8.64, which equals to 4.5 out of 5 stars. The last and final thing that I finished over the past week was Exit Strategy by Martha Wells, the last and final book in the Murderbot Diaries. Then there's the new Murderbot complete book that recently came out called Network Effect, which I'm eager to get to now. So I was really happy to see this one finished. I can't get into specifics of this specific last book because it's the 4th and final book in the series, but I have been really enjoying the Murderbot books. So let's get into the breakdown. The overall breakdown goes as follows. Characters get a 9 out of 10 because overall I just really enjoy Murderbot. Murderbot is really well written, and Murderbot will themselves get a 10 out of 10, but because of some of the humans not being as awesome as Murderbot and art, for instance, I give them the overall score 9 out of 10. Atmosphere gets an 8 out of 10 because I do enjoy the setting. I think it's an interesting world, and I definitely happy to get back into this. The writing gets an 8 out of 10 because I think it's well written, I think it's structured well, and I think the pace is good. And considering it's a short story, it does have enough in every book that you're intrigued and there's something going for the plot. The plot gets an 8 out of 10 as well, and yeah, this is basically just the one with all of the 8s, because overall intrigue gets an 8 out of 10, the overall logic gets an 8 out of 10, as well as the overall enjoyment gets an 8 out of 10, because I just overall really enjoyed this book. It was well written and all of that. And it gives an overall score of 8.14, which equals to 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, those are all of the books that I've been reading over the past few weeks that I hadn't already talked about. And I am currently still reading Goldstroke Island by Frances Hardinge. I am on page 196. I will make an effort to try and finish that over the next week. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've been talking about today, what your thoughts were on them. Did you watch the vlog and what did you think of it? Also let me know about that. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.